Hello, and welcome to the Building Business Podcast, powered by the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce. We're here recording in the Charleston Radio Group studios. Thank you for being such a great supporter, Charleston Radio Group. I'm here, me, Kathy Herman. I am the current president of the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce, and I am also the marketing director at Mount Pleasant Town Center. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today. My co-host, Michael Cochran. Michael Cochran is the 2024 chair for the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce Foundation.
Thank you, Kathy. Yep, and Chamber's a wonderful organization. I've been involved for several years and love doing the innovative things that we're doing with this podcast. And Kathy, we're looking forward to a great year with you at the helm.
I appreciate that very much, Michael. And of course, our very special guest, someone who I am so excited to talk with, who I look up to for all the work that he's done, not just in this area, but across the country. I am so excited to welcome Joe Elmore, the president and CEO of Charleston Animal Society. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. And working with you over the years has just been a delight.
Well, I have you here for two reasons. One because I personally love the Charleston Animal Society. And of course, professionally, Town Center does a lot with you. But I'm so excited to hear and hopefully be able to share with our listeners how some of our smaller nonprofit members can learn from you, and you can share some of your secrets for becoming such a successful organization. But before we start there, for people who do not know Joe, do you want to give us a little bit of a background, Joe, and how you became involved with the Charleston Animal Society?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was a young, wet behind the ears engineer with Mobil Oil Corporation down in the early 80s on the Texas-Mexican border, drilling for natural gas. And that's just not where my heart was. It's where my aptitude was. So anyway, but problem solving, it's all about problem solving, engineering is. And I had volunteered for nonprofits since I was in high school. And also, so one thing led to another, and, I was in my 20s, and I thought I wanted to go out and, save the world one cause at a time, So, I didn't think about bills and that kind of thing, and what an engineering career would help, in that regard. But so I decided to take off. I went to, I think I started out in St. Louis, Missouri, and 9 states, 3 times overseas, some of those states a couple of different times, but gravitating towards really kind of the most vulnerable, I don't want to say victims, but just the most vulnerable creatures, whether human or animal or that type of thing, that, I could stumble upon. And it was one thing after another. It was everything from a lot of disasters. I think I've been in somewhere, I stopped counting, around 22 or 23 hurricanes, but earthquakes, those kinds of things, a lot of tornadoes, all that stuff. But eventually crisis management and organizational turnarounds. And that took me into a lot of different areas, whether it was HIV and AIDS during the 80s, when it was people were just dropping, your friends, your relatives, folks you didn't know, perhaps, were just dropping. It was so fatal and lethal that disease was at that time. And then, at-risk youth, the elderly, like I said, a lot of disasters, some biomedical services, those types of things, and even, refugees, prisoners of war, in the Persian Gulf War, and the first one. And then eventually, 2004, went into probably what is the most vulnerable of God's creatures, and that is animals, and started there. And so I started with AS. Actually, I didn't. I started with a regional animal organization in the Caribbean to sort of build that up, sort of a regional facility, and grow its membership so that it would be sustainable. And then when Hurricane Katrina hit, I was actually down in Argentina when it hit. Came back up, and the ASPCA, the nation's first animal organization, I had some contact with them, and they recruited me to come up to the Gulf Coast and to head up that recovery operation for 2 years. And then from there, came over to Charleston for my second time in Charleston for a project with the ASPCA, and then finally in 2012 went over as CEO to Charleston Animal Society.
And Was it that big? Was Charleston Animal Society as big as it is now when you took the helm?
In terms of the number of animals that were coming into it, yes. In terms of the number of animals being saved, no.
No.
Not at all. But it's but the organization has grown. It's grown has grown significantly. It's got an annual membership of around 18 to 20,000. And it's really cool, I think, as a nonprofit, because a lot of nonprofits, they're kind of old school, base their memberships on something financial, like, okay, you become a member, you have a $25 annual fee or something like that. And I think that was similar with Charleston Animal Society. And our board of directors, which is great, they really looked at this in 2015, 2016 and saw the upward trend that we were on and reevaluated everything and, thought, well, it's kind of like the proverbial milk stool with three legs. If you don't have one of those three legs, the whole thing is going to collapse. So if you think about the seat as the institution, the organization, those three pillars that hold it up, one is going to be those who make a gift of their time, volunteers, those that make a gift of their income, donors, or those that make a gift of their home, the adopters.
And all three are just as important as the
yes,
next,
without
correct?
any of those legs, pillars,
Right.
collapses. The whole thing comes tumbling down. And so the board of directors decided to define our membership as that. You make a gift of, your time, your money, or your home, and you are a member of Charleston Animal Society.
That's amazing. I mean, that certainly makes a difference. I
Yeah.
know there's so many people out there that might not be able to donate money, right? But they can go up and volunteer their time or work an event or even share the word, whatever it might be, to get more animals adopted and or for them to help you raise more money,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
all kind of that vicious circle that just keeps going.
Well, yeah, you're a volunteer for us.
I know.
Yeah,
I raise a lot of money for you, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's we have about 26 volunteers for every employee. So we have about between 25 and 100, about 2,500, 2,600 volunteers that are active. Yeah, so
That's
it's
a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a lot. So typically folks will ask me, how many employees do you have? I'll tell them, probably around 90 employees, give or take. And it's, that's a lot of employees and everything. We had 2,600 volunteers. And then it just blows them away. 2,600 volunteers, are you kidding? Well, they contribute over $1 million worth of time,
Right.
to us a year, which is invaluable.
Right. Well, I know that the shelter's based in North Charleston or Remount Road. If you've not been there, get there and go adopt a puppy or a kitten. But I know you still do a lot of work in Mount Pleasant, and as working at Mount Pleasant Town Center, I know is important, our partnerships, because you want to reach the people in Mount Pleasant, even though you're based in North Charleston. You want them to go over the bridge to go see you and see what you're doing there.
Yeah, there's over 1,000 residents of Mount Pleasant that we provide services to every year.
Yeah.
I mean, over 1,000. And it's in Mount Pleasant, particularly the town of Mount Pleasant, is just wonderful to work with. From Mayor Haney to the town council members to the town administrator Eric, everyone, and Chief Arnold. I mean, they're all just great people to work with. We have a very solid relationship with the town of Mount Pleasant, and it's the Animal Society was, this is going to be the 150th year of the Animal Society anniversary.
Congratulations! Yay!
The sesquicentennial, and it took me about 6 months to practice that.
What was that word? What was that word again?
The sesquicentennial. I could actually spell it now. I studied for about 3 months on how to spell this word after 3 months of trying to pronounce the word. But anyway, it's like, God, could they come up with something shorter for the 150?
Just say 150.
No, that's what we
150.
did.
150.
So, but it's pretty cool because the organization was the first animal organization in South Carolina. So it was founded as a South Carolina Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and it covered the entire state. And so it's one of the oldest in the nation. And then eventually became the John Ancrum SPCA. So a lot of listeners are going to understand or know it as John Ancrum SPCA. In 2008, it became Charleston Animal Society, really for the Charleston region and all. And it's, but yeah, like we just, we're kind of finalizing our numbers for last year. There's about 9,500 animals that we took in to the shelter, actually took into the shelter. Now about another 11,000 we provided services to try to keep out of the shelter.
Right. Wow.
And of the 9,500, just in Charleston County, probably about 8,500 or so were from Charleston County. So that's a lot. It's not the largest physical shelter in the state, but it's the largest by number of animals that we bring in and move and save.
Now, Joe, is that strictly, that 9,500, is that strictly with the animals, dogs and cats? Or is it other?
No, let me tell you, I get everything from hamsters to horses. That's what I say. Wildlife, sometimes injured wildlife is brought to us, and we'll triage it and then get it to the right folks, because wildlife falls under federal regulations, DNR, and everything. But it's but with companion animals and exotics, like I said the other day, it's in there, and I have this phobia. I mean, I'll swim with sharks, but snakes keeps me away from snakes. It's so everybody, and the
somebody brought in their pet boa
everyone in the
constrictor.
facility knows this. Well, they're always pranking me with snakes, and I'm like, jumping and jittering, walking down the hallways and stuff, because someone's always pranking me with snakes and everything. And then we'll have these veterinary students from the veterinary schools, do internships with us and everything. They'll be in surgery, and we do 10,000 surgeries a year. So they're all back there, and then they'll hear this crazy man screaming and yelling and everything. I'm like, who's that? What is it? Active shooter? What? And it's like, they're like, no, that's the CEO. It's like, so anyway, but no, so my assistant, which I call my wingman, she came out of the office, and she shut the door behind her, and there's this glass panel next to the office, and we share an office. It's and she just closed the door behind her, with her put her hands behind her back. She said, I wouldn't go out right now or in the next few minutes. And I said, what? I said, what is going on? And I said, it's a snake. And she said, yes. Well, someone's parent had to be placed in a hospice, and the kids didn't want to keep 4 pythons.
Sure.
Well, who wants to keep 4 pythons, right? I don't want to keep 4 pythons.
Right.
And so I see through the glass panel somebody bringing down this big glass aquarium, which is, what you try to keep pythons in, right? It's and immediately what's going through my head are visions of South Florida and the Burmese pythons and the explosion of that and everything. And and they say we have 4. And I say, no, we don't have 4. Call the Serpentarium down in Ravenel. And it's a great facility. It's great. God bless them. They bailed us out on that one because they have the environment for 4 pythons.
And aren't we glad that they dropped them off at the shelter instead of just letting them loose to run around wherever they were going to run around?
Excellent point,
yeah. So I mean, everything. We have a horse now, Michael. If you need a horse, we got a horse for Dasha now. But a lot of these animals come to us, and many are injured, many are ill from not having the care, or from being stray or lost for a significant amount of time, and become malnourished. So we treat them, and the staff and volunteers are phenomenal at treating these animals and making them whole again. And then some of them are going to have a little quirk here, a little quirk there. You wouldn't believe that it's whenever we have a lot of animals that are hit by vehicles, and they come in, and sometimes those animals' legs have to be amputated, that kind of thing, particularly with dogs, which are great. I mean, you would never believe the demand for 3-legged dogs. Mm-hmm. It's
tripods.
Yeah. I mean, people love 3-legged dogs, regardless of what kind of dog, what breed of dog, that type of thing it is, and they'll just come in and adopt these 3-legged dogs. Like, we can't keep them on the adoption floor. We don't have a whole lot of them by any means, but once in a while we do, and it's just humorous that people and what they kind of gravitate towards. But it's almost like the dogs know, and it's like the dog kind of struts down the adoption hallway with oh man, I got it made. You're gonna be here for a while.
Do you have an update on the pythons? Were they adopted?
They are down at the Serpentarium.
Okay, they're where they should be then, Joe? Out of my shelter. That's where they are.
Yeah. There's a lot of legalities with animals and everything, because by federal law they're considered property. Right. So you have all kinds of laws that apply to that, and state laws can't really. They can enhance, but they can't usurp federal law and all. And so almost entirely across the United States, I mean, animals are classified as property, and so there are a lot of legal entanglements with those things.
Another thing I wanted to share with our listeners too, who have children, is that you have amazing programs for kids at the shelter. I know about the summer camps. Mm-hmm. If you want to tell us a little bit more about that, because there's so many opportunities for our local children to learn more about not only what you do, how to carefully take care of an animal, right? Mm-hmm. How to take care of an animal if you run into one. I mean, all those types of things that maybe as mom and dads don't want to have to teach. I know you offer those amazing programs at your shelter.
Yeah, well, being 150 years old, a number of the animal societies back in the late 1800s and early 1900s when they formed also addressed the plight of children. This was before child labor laws. This was before before departments of social services and all of that. You may have had a town orphanage or that type of thing, but a number of these animal societies address the needs of children. It's in fact, I believe it was in the 20s or 30s perhaps, that a gentleman from Charleston coined the term be kind to animals. And that just kind of was adapted, across the entire country and across the world and everything. That just originated right here in Charleston. And we're gonna release all the kinds of little historical tidbits this year in the sesquicentennial year.
Yes, that's right. Because 150 is important.
But and so the whole idea of this education that we do with children is teaching compassion, because it's a learned behavior or value, however you want to frame it. It's learned, and it has to be reinforced over and over and over again. And we see, and we all see, it's it's clear. I mean, South Carolina, based on the 2022 FBI stats, 8th most violent state in the country. North Charleston, most violent city in the 8th most violent state. Charleston, the 3rd most violent city in the 8th most violent state. So, and much of this are young people and everything. And so we teach compassion because we've got a great tool, animals, and so the whole idea of teaching compassion is that you're compassionate towards living creatures, whether they're animals or they're humans. And so we hope that there are benefits out there with kids learning compassion, having it reinforced through our programs at the Animal Society, that they will go on to become, basically humanitarians. Because how does one become a humanitarian? It just doesn't happen overnight. You have to basically grow kids into humanitarians, and as a family, as a community, as a school, as institutions, churches, faith community, that type of thing. Children have to be grown into humanitarians, and that's the whole idea. And then and that plays into or supports what the Animal Society is trying to strive for, is a kind community, kind to animals, kind to people, just kind community.
That's perfect. I love it.
One thing that comes to mind with the children and training and education for kids, I mean, a lot of parents are like, they want to get their child a puppy or a kitty. And, they're like, all right, now this is going to be your responsibility. And a lot of times you'll see the kids get tired of the animal after about 6 months or a year, and then that animal goes somewhere else. So is there a lot of training and education on that to help prevent some of that?
There is. There's I need a lot of education. Training probably more is needed with the parents or the adults. The adults,
but it's probably better, right?
Yeah. But with the kids, it's all structured, and they're so hungry for it, and they learn all of the the responsibilities of this. But I'll tell you, one of the great learning experiences with the Animal Society is in the late spring and summer is when everybody across the country has the explosion of kittens. You just feel at times they're just falling from the sky, and particularly where there's rapid development, like our area where we live, lots of development and everything. Feral cats that have always been in these places, they're being developed. Trees are being and buildings are being torn down, razed, and then all of a sudden people see these feral cats with their kittens and that type of thing. So a lot of folks are scooping them up, bringing them to us and all. We have such a caring community, Michael, that parents, and it's a good time, they'll bring their kids in to foster a kitten. There's no way we could keep all these kittens at the Animal Society. There's just no way. Sometimes we've had as many as 600 or 700 at one time, and it takes time for them to basically grow and make their weight to, be processed for adoption, like spayed or neutered, that's surgery and all. However, once the kitten or any neonatal, any creature before it's weaned basically is separated from its mother, the survivability, basically is cut by more than half. So it takes 24/7 of constant nourishment. It's not a pretty job or anything, but constant nourishment. Well, some of them are not going to survive. It's at around 50%. But the kids come in, they have their parent with them to guide them through this process. You're going to lose some, but most, more than likely, will survive in this fostering environment. But you're learning just how fragile life is. It's a valuable, experience for not only the parents, but really for the kids to learn that. And we have, we've had kids, there's a couple of brothers that we had a video of this probably about 10 years ago. They probably have already graduated Clemson. I think they went to Clemson and everything. And they were explaining it on video, what they were doing and why they were doing it, how it works and everything, much better than any of us, any of us professionals could explain it and everything. It's just like, yeah, that's exactly what happens. That is the experience.
I have been in your kitten neonatal ward, and I've put on my gown, and I've been blessed. I've been honored to do this, and bottle fed a little
Oh.
that this big, and trust me, it affects me. I can't even imagine what it would do to a child.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, I just leave there crying and wanted to take home every single kitten there is because I'm a huge cat fan. Brian Cleary knows that. But it's such an experience to me, as like I said, as an adult, and to bring kids into it. I'm sure I love the idea of teaching them from a young age to be able to, the respect for animals and how to treat animals, because it's something you don't forget.
Yeah, and it's because we love you so much, Kathy. It's I actually, and we know you love cats and everything. We actually have a basket of kittens for you out there in the lobby that we
That's
brought
the best gift ever. Michael, you've never brought me a basket of kittens.
I have not.
But that's all right. That's all right. I've already made a call. We're going to bring the horse to Michael.
That's right. That's right.
Gotta get up.
You better get a bigger backyard,
Absolutely.
Michael.
Well, to that point, we've talked about kittens and puppies and things. Yeah. On the equine side, there's a big difference in health care and care for an animal like that.
Yes.
Can you address that?
There is. And again, I can't give more credit to our fosters because it's, we can hold a horse or a pig or goats, chickens, anything up there in our barn area, for a while. But usually we need to, as quickly as we can, get them out to foster homes. Mm-hmm. It's a better environment. Horses need pasture. And so that's what we do. We've had, in recent memory, the largest local horse rescue that occurred was, I think it was probably about 10 or 11 years ago. And it was out on Johns Island. There were 11 horses at one time that were, had to be seized by law enforcement. And so we were able to take those and place them directly into foster homes. And we worked very close with law enforcement agencies. But you're absolutely right, Michael. It's much more, costly. The feeding, anyone who, raises livestock or horses, let's say, that are feeding them these days. I mean, like everything else, dog food, cat food, feed for livestock, it's all has skyrocketed in cost. Sure. And so that's, and so what we do with our foster support families is that, we provide for any kind of nourishment, let's say for the animals. So that might be food, it may be medications, it may be some kind of treatment, it may be some type of rehabilitation, everything. Right. And sometimes horses are neglected in various ways. And also they're not horses, some horses are like, other animals, can be aggressive. And other folks that are willing to take in a horse to adopt it along with their horses as a companion horse, just really can't do it because it'd be aggressive towards them. So sometimes we work with, rehabilitators, trainers, basically, on some of the animals. Give them their best chance.
Absolutely. Joe, can you address maybe the vetting process for some of the fostering? Because that would be really good for our listeners.
That's very helpful, yeah. That's very helpful to share.
Sure. Well, we have an orientation for our foster families, and when I say family, I mean family could be one person. Family could be it can be whatever you imagine it can be. So we try to be as honest and transparent as possible in terms of what to expect with fostering, and based on the type of animal and everything. With kittens, and we launch a Let 'em Be campaign each spring, early spring. A lot of folks don't, really hear that, internalize it. They see newborn kittens and don't really understand that they don't see the mother with them. Well, the mother's not going to be with them. The mother's probably going to be feral. The mother's probably going to be out there foraging for food and things, but probably also is watching you as you're watching those kittens and coming close to the kittens. But they'll scoop them up and bring them to us, and we try to explain the best thing you can do is to take them back because it's separated from their mother now, and without a mother's milk, without fresh air, animals, young animals don't have a great chance of survival and everything. But of course, folks look at us like we have a third eye. What do you mean? You want to take on the ag? But we explain it, everything. So we place them with the fosters program, and we have lots of fosters. And we sometimes will be in a real jam where we've had so many kittens or animals come in at one time, and it's kind of a fast track orientation. But we want to set the foster family, we want to set all the volunteers, we want to set our staff up for success. And, orienting them, being as transparent and straightforward, and giving them, what they need, the tools they need to do that life-saving job, we want to provide to them.
Sure.
And we tell them, typically, with the, kittens, it may be 2 to 6 weeks, depending on their age. With other animals, it could be as much as 3 months. I think the horse that we have right now, it's probably been a couple, at least 2 good months, maybe possibly looking at, 3 good months. But the horse, some of those animals, like the horses where they have pasture and that type of thing, you don't have the rush at getting it out into a home like we do with the dogs and cats because they're so overpopulated. And about, the proverbial 99% of our animals are going to be dogs and cats. And then that 1% or so, it could be anything. Yeah, right. Birds, fish, you name it, roosters, the whole thing. The pig, you remember from a few years ago, the big pig on Interstate 26 that went off the truck and another car came by and hit it and everything. Law enforcement goes in, tries to get this, 500 pound, but we have 500 pounds. It was for 400 to 500 pounds and brought it to us and everything. And it's, it's like, and that was a doozy. That was a doozy, but 500-pound pig and somebody adopted it.
And you love your foster failures too, don't you?
Yeah. I love
so many of my friends
failures.
are foster failures.
Yeah, I'm a foster failure.
Are you?
Proud,
right?
Yeah,
you should.
You
be
get
proud.
attached. You get attached and everything, and sometimes sometimes you just continue to foster, and some foster failures continue to fail.
And you need both of those types of people, right? The ones that can actually just focus on getting those puppies and kittens ready for adoption, and actually feel better and feel more loved actually giving them to somebody for another home, and then the other half that are complete foster failures, which I would be, I'm sure.
And our fosters have evolved into, our program has evolved so that we trust our fosters to adopt out those animals because they can share with a potential adopter more about that animal than we could ever share because they're focused on that animal 24/7. And so we've given them or have enabled them to go out there, empowered them rather, to go out there and adopt those animals. Out,
and talk about volunteers that are needed, right? Fosters.
Oh yeah,
I can't
always,
even imagine.
Critical.
There's always a call for that. So your time, your money, like you said, your adoptive home and fostering, right? All ways of helping.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we've had, like I said, anywhere like 600 animals, 700 animals in foster at our peaks, and that's twice as many animals as the shelter can hold.
Right.
And so you're looking at you're really operating, the equivalent of 2 more animal shelters out there.
Right.
But you don't have, you don't have the physical plant costs, the labor cost, the overtime cost.
And all the dogs
24/7.
and they're getting love and attention.
Right.
In a loving home and learning all the important things about becoming part of a family. I find that to be really important when you're getting
fresh
an
air
animal.
and fresh air because again that herd environment, it's kind of like with the onset of COVID back in 2020. That was, we kind of thrived in COVID because that's all we do is herd health. And it's like, everybody else gets to play at it now. It's like, with no disrespect with all the losses, that occurred during COVID and everything.
Yes.
But it was, but we're masked up, certainly in a large area of the animal shelter and everything. More of the outreach administrative areas were not messed up and everything, so it's just a matter of we're going to mask up and just basically expand the protocols to the rest of the facility and everything. And it was so funny because we were going to try, like so many employers did, and I know the chamber memberships, listening and everything will appreciate this, I'm sure. And I'm sure there's been similar stories. Well, in April, more of the, administrative type of employees or the employees that are not direct hands-on with the animals, what we'll do is we're going to try this remote, working for, April. And it was, I'll never forget this. And so on day 2, I had 2 employees come back or call me and they said, we want to come back. And, why? And they said, because, sorry, I'm not being sexist, but sorry. So they sent my husband home too. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I'm begging you, let me come back.
I thought it was going to have something to do with the dog, but you're right, husband.
Let me come back. And so they came, I was saying, well, sure, yeah. And so then they all started just gravitating back. They don't want to work remotely. They want to be, around the animals. Around the environment and away from the husbands, and who got sit home also.
I also want to congratulate you. Tell us a little bit about the Guinness Book of World Records that you set.
Oh, that was
how exciting!
That was so cool. It was exciting, and it was difficult. It was a real challenge, but there were several objectives for doing it, and so what we wanted to do was we were thinking about a pet vaccine type of world record, and we were checking into it. Well, unbeknownst to us, the city of Corpus Christi, Texas, was checking on it at the same time. But we were both in touch with Petco Love, formerly Petco Foundation, about, sponsoring, that type of thing. And they were the ones that told us. They said, well, Corpus Christi's doing theirs in December. And we were playing Irish in February. And it's like, okay, well, at least they're going to do theirs. And so with Texas and the way the state veterinary requirements are written, regulations are written and everything, basically you could do it with, a couple of veterinarians and one overseeing parking lot A, one overseeing parking lot B, and you have, basically anybody, the brother administering vaccines and all. Well, there's a couple of things. Guinness World Record won't allow an invasive procedure like a medical procedure as a world record. So it's more of like, how many pledges do you get? Well, to get the pledges, you basically need to give the vaccines to get the pledges in there and go through all of the requirements they have. They send out somebody to, observe you and monitor you and all that kind of stuff, and they're dressed in their little, doodads and stuff with a Guinness insignia and all that kind of thing. And, it's kind of like the IRS coming in or something. You don't know how to read them and all that. They're monitoring everything. So we had, we collaborated with the City of North Charleston, Petco Love, Subaru, different ones, and they were all great. But for the regulations here in the state of South Carolina, it's much harder. Every single animal before it gets a vaccine has to be assessed by a veterinarian. So for us to break their record, we had to have veterinarians, 30 veterinarians, 30 plus veterinarians. So we reached out to our area veterinarians and said, look, this is, a Guinness World Record, once in a lifetime bucket list item. And so they really supported us, came out. We had stations all set up. Multiple objectives with this. One was it's always good to do something like this for employee morale, test yourselves. But also, this was a large operation. We did it in the Coliseum parking lot. And we were able to, similar to the COVID vaccines, meander the traffic flow up through the garage and back to the floor level where there were multiple stations that they could get, the animals could get vaccines. And you had all kinds of dogs and cats. It was limited to dogs and cats. But you had all kinds of vehicles, all kinds of families, grandma, grandpa, bring Uncle Joe, Sally Mae, and Fred, bring them all. The whole family. Sometimes we'd have, one animal and 7 people in the car. Or sometimes we'd have 7 animals in the car and one person in the car. So just all kinds of, it was a fun day. It was cold. It was in February. But so another objective was, we were talking earlier about Hurricane Hugo and everything. We had, thank God we haven't been hit by a major directly by a major hurricane since about Hurricane Hugo. What is the community? How's the community going to respond? Regardless of how much we do these exercises and things on paper, until you just roll up your sleeves and you get into it, a real training type drill, you just don't know how you're going to respond. So this helps us in terms of helping in a disaster scenario of mobilizing quickly and mobilizing a number of animals. Well, we administered, I think, over 3,000 vaccines that day. And it was
what was the record?
It was about, it was far below that. It was, I don't even know what it was.
Oh, so you blew Texas out of the water, basically.
Yeah. Well, me, it's like there's no difference between second and last place. Right. It's, it's like you're either on top or you're not.
Got to blow you away
you're on top or you're not. You got the record or you don't. And so our staff asked me, they said, are we going to do another one of these vaccine events in 2024? I said, well, it depends on if somebody breaks our record.
Right.
But it also raised, another objective was that it raised awareness about the critical need to have your pets vaccinated. Sure. And we were able to get some good data. People were coming from all around, and we were able to find out, when was the last time your animal saw a veterinarian. And a number of folks, I think it was like at least a third of the animals that came through had never seen a veterinarian and all. And so veterinarians were there to help them, if they saw something in the assessment, they could talk to the family also about whether, look, you can call my office on Monday, or you can do this, or you can do that. And we had different resources for them and all. But we got a lot of community animals vaccinated that day.
That's amazing.
And it was just good. It was just coming out of it, set the world record. Everybody felt good about it. But there were multiple objectives that we were able to achieve. And we're also better prepared as a community in case of emergencies that impact animals as well.
So, Joe, do you think that process that you went through and all the lessons that you did learn, can you bottle that and use that, package that to help share with other places that have disasters that come up? Is that something that could be in the future for that?
Well, absolutely. If there are disasters that come up and getting ready for disasters, now if they want to break our record, I don't know if
Right,
I'd share with them.
Sure.
That, have to do one of those. I guess I'd have to do one of those stealing sides things, whatever. But no, of course we'd do that, and we do that. We share basically what we call it is our recipe that works for us, our recipe that makes our community successful. We don't position ourselves to indicate or imply that we do things any better or worse than anyone else. It's just, this is our recipe. This is how it works here. It's like you go over to somebody's house and, for a low country boil or frogmore stew or whatever, it may not look real pretty. It's going to look different every time you cook it, but, damn, it sure tastes good,
Right.
that type of thing. And so but we very much share that. And we actually have become a leading disaster responder across the Southeast during hurricanes and everything. We've had a number of states and animal organizations help us, particularly during that 5 or 6 year period where we had so many near misses a few years ago. And animal shelters along the coast are all in jeopardy of flooding because they're all on low-lying ground. And we're fortunate that we are not. We're over there next to the airport in Boeing. We're on high ground. It's a real good situation for us. And so our board of directors back in 2016 also adopted sort of a mantra, is that we have a disproportionate responsibility to others. If there's an animal in need and we have the ability to impact that animal in need, then we will do that. And so, but we've had, the Florida shelters, North Carolina shelters, other particularly disaster-prone areas have helped us out, have had our backs during hurricanes and near misses that we didn't know were going to be near misses until it would be too late to evacuate animals out of harm's way. And so we do the same thing with them. And we've been, down to New Orleans and southern Louisiana and Mississippi, and then also down to South Florida and North Florida as well with most of our rescues. But we also assist with large animal cruelty operations across the state. We work with law enforcement from the upstate through the PD region all the way down to the low country.
I was going to say with the animal cruelty is, of course, Caitlin, who, if anyone does not already know, was adopted by her attorney and is living the best life ever.
Yeah.
But that story went national. That made national news.
International. Yeah.
Well, I can say national because
Yeah,
I had just moved here, and my friends were all texting me and everything. What's going on there? What's going on there? And because they're all animal lovers as well. That was something for that news to go and travel so far, and then of course to have the most positive outcome. He was convicted, and she has a home. Right? And
right.
That's and then everything that went from there.
Yeah, he's gonna, that perpetrator is going to really, probably rot away in South Carolina prison system, and then if he doesn't, then the Georgia prison system is going to get him right after. So he had, and we see this with animal cruelty, heinous animal cruelty, intentional animal cruelty. Most animal cruelty is neglect, and most of that can be addressed through education, intervention, that type of thing. Not necessarily through punitive law enforcement, but the ones that are law enforcement, and we do the forensics, the veterinary forensics, and some of the case support working with law enforcement. We have the most experienced cruelty investigation folks in the state, and we go from, like I said, Lawrence County, Pickens County Sheriff's offices, different ones that we work with. With Caitlin in particular, it was, there have been copycats to that in recent years following that. And it's where, someone took, the electrical tape and, just, wrapped it over the muzzle and tied it and constricted it and everything, and Caitlin would have died had a Good Samaritan not alerted law enforcement. It's like, just, when you alert law enforcement to something, as humans, we just know when something's wrong. And you don't have to be a cruelty expert or that type of thing. You just know when something's wrong. And law enforcement will check it out. And if nothing's wrong, or if it's okay, or if it, they can always, provide some education, get them in touch with us, that type of thing. But if it's intentional cruelty, then punitive action and a law enforcement intervention needs to take place. And what we try to do is, and we do this complimentary, we don't charge law enforcement agencies for this. We want them to have the best case moving forward that they can, because the solicitors are going to want that. The solicitor's not going to want something that's going to tie up, court time and everything, and then you're going to lose it. They'll know whether it's, what they want are slam dunks for the most part. Well, we all want that, right? It's But there's a lot that goes into veterinary forensics, and I mean we had a pup come in, the day after Christmas, 26, and looked like he had a little bit of a issue with his jowl here, his right jowl, and friendly pup came in, and somebody brought him in as a stray assistant, brought him in, and the veterinarians were assessing it and everything, and then it started to abscess a little bit, and the veterinarians did a further evaluation of it and everything, and sure enough, the dog had been shot in the jowl and got the bullet right in there, and was able to extract it and everything. But we'll have that dog up for adoption probably this week. And but the sweetest dog. And I was telling our cruelty investigator this morning, as a matter of fact, I said, yeah, that's my understanding. That's a really sweet dog and everything. He said, yeah. I said, it's just so phenomenal that the animals that come in that have been victims to this heinous cruelty, like a Caitlin, they just have the best disposition of that.
Well, that's why dogs are better than humans.
Yeah, if it were me, I'd be looking for someone. I'd be like, I'm going to go after somebody, all that kind of stuff. These animals are just so innocent and so loving, and I'm just so glad and appreciative that they have a new path forward.
Like people always say, people don't deserve dogs.
Yeah,
I don't think I did. My dog is best thing in the world, and the way he looks at me with this unconditional love that just blows my mind. I think more humans need to be like dogs.
Well, and the studies show. I mean, the studies demonstrate that people who have animals live longer.
Right. I could talk to you forever, Joe. I really, really could. So maybe we can have you back for another one. But I wanted to see if there's any kind of business or fundraising tips, or what would you say to someone who is working in a smaller nonprofit about perhaps, like I said, fundraising or business or generating interest, anything like that you could share with them?
Well, I think, and it's interesting because we're going through a period of restructuring now, and I told our group, particularly the what we call the advancement group, marketing fundraising group, earlier this week, that what I'm really trying to look at is the really the scale and scope of relationship management and sort of reassigning some particular functions, because it's all about relationships. Everything is about relationships. You know this, and you know this, Michael. Y'all know this, working with the chamber and the chamber membership, and working with as marketing director with Town Center and all. It's all about relationships and relationships with the tenants and the customers and everything. Everything's about relationships. How many relationships can you effectively manage? And that's and it's much, and this is just real basic business customer service. It costs so much more to acquire a new customer than to steward or cultivate a current customer or supporter or member or whatever you want to say. So we look at things because we want to be successful from a real, successful, not from a business perspective, but from a successful business perspective, because we know whether it's nonprofit, whether it's government, whether it's any kind of entity of business for profit, you can have some, lousy ones out there, and it's across the spectrum. So we really look at, return on investments. What is the, I see this quite a bit in, sort of teaching fundraising, and it's, where you'll look at events, or some of the nonprofits will look at events and they don't include all of the real cost. Well, we don't include staff time because our staff's going to be there anyway, working. Well, yeah, but you really need to include that time. That's the correct way to do it, because what could that staff be doing with their time other than this event? And we all know that, and I'm not discouraging events, but events are the least effective way to raise dollars. That's the least effective way to raise dollars. And for us, our budget, it's 60% is from contributions and fundraising. It's from those relationships, 60%, so the majority of it. And then about 20% is from our program fees. And we keep our fees as low as we can because we want to be accessible and affordable, for the community. And we take in about 95% or more of the animals in the community throughout all of Charleston County. And then about 20% is our vendor shelter contract with government to shelter or for the disposition of animals that are collected by government, basically, or by citizens. But also the credentialing, we value credentialing highly. And if you're in fundraising or, nonprofit management, there are credentialing paths, to pursue. In fundraising, there's one in particular, and we call that the Certified Fundraising Executive Credential. It's comprehensive. It's overseen by the Association of Fundraising Professionals. It's a well-established group. It's a good program. There's a local chapter here, and just getting involved with that, you pick up effective sort of leading practices from each other.
That existed.
And all. Yeah.
So perhaps some of our members didn't know that existed either.
So the local chapter is a good chapter and everything. It's quite active. It's got an active, membership. They bring in speakers that in the fundraising field. I know they've got things going on in January, kicking off the new year. So a number of our staff are involved in that. We try to get our staff involved in as much as possible. But it all comes down to relationship management. And when you say that you don't have time for relationships, you don't have time to fundraise, you don't have time for this, then it's for us, we see this and like we have such an army of fosters that all they want to do is save animals. They don't want to fundraise or that kind of thing. What we're seeing as a trend is, and this certainly is not every rescue group, but a number of rescue groups getting into trouble because they've overwhelmed themselves. And they're kind of on that slippery slope to hoarding or other things, taking the law into their own hands or just ignoring the law or practicing veterinarian medicine without being qualified, which is against the law. And we're seeing this more and more folks have gotten these animals from rescue groups and, come to us and say something's wrong, and they'll tell us what's wrong, what they ran into and that type of thing. But there's no regulations for shelters or rescue groups in South Carolina, something that we really have been trying to work on with the state legislature, and it's it's getting to a point where it's quite sad, but it's kind of that power and control that folks want. Well, look, if you want to save animals, do it through us. We have a program. We'll cover all your costs. We'll do the fundraising. You don't need to do that. You just need to save animals, which is what you want to do. But if you want that power and control and all that, and you save them whenever you want to. I mean, it's your time, whenever you want to. But, some folks want all that power and control to just, no, I want to do it my way. I want to, that type of thing. And it's something that, bothers us in the animal sector.
That's great.
You've got a good recipe.
Yeah, sure do. All right, so before we let you go,
okay. All right.
We do have a couple of fun rapid fire questions.
All right. Okay. Gotcha. All right.
Michael's going to help me out with this. Yeah. Okay.
I can stay here all day with y'all.
I know. That's what I said before.
I have a ball.
If you were an animal, what type of animal would you be and why?
I think, Horton the elephant. Because I'm going to date myself because I'm sure a number of listeners probably don't even know who these animals are. Horton the elephant from Dr. Seuss. I mean, it's a compassionate.
Horton Hears a Who.
Yeah, Horton Hears a Who. And just the compassionate nature of so many of Dr. Seuss's characters and everything. Flipper, I love dolphins. Flipper was, just such a hero to so many kids and everything. Right. And just Flipper was always coming in to save the day. And dolphins are travelers and smart and compassionate also creatures. And so I'm just drawn to that. And then, of course, Lassie. I mean, if you grew up with Lassie, I grew up with Lassie, and it was like, you just fell in love. And we don't see the American Collie much anymore as a breed. There are a number of breeds that we don't see anymore, such as, Collies, Irish Setters, some of those breeds.
Don't forget Rin Tin Tin.
Yeah, Rin Tin Tin.
Now you're both dating yourselves.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know who those people are. That was way before my time. I remember Benji.
Yep, Benji. Yeah, Benji.
I used to watch that on TV.
Yeah. And that's what we would just ask everybody. Is, a lot of folks have this misperception that you go to an animal shelter and we're going to be full of Benjis. And we're just not. No. Because Benjis are like the most desirable dog. And most of those types of dogs get absorbed by family and friends before they even make it to an animal shelter. And so a number of our animals will have, they'll have a quirk here or a quirk there. A number of them don't. But it just gives them more character, more personality, and really we feel, and a number of the testimonials from the adopters is that this particular animal just enhanced this person's life, just completed their life, for them. So that's what you're going to find in an animal shelter.
That's awesome.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'll put you on the spot.
That's all right.
So when I met the young lady that I eventually married, she was a cat person and I was a dog person. And I had to very quickly learn to become a cat person. Now I have 2 cats and I love them.
Okay.
Are you a cat person or a dog person?
Both, actually, both. It's I love all animals except for snakes. It's most of the animals. We have bearded dragons up there now. So so I can take the basket of kittens back and bring you a bearded dragon.
No, thank you. I'll take the basket.
But yeah.
of kittens,
So both cat and dog. I love them both and everything. Love them both.
That's awesome. So now, of course, everyone knows Charleston Animal Society. So if there was a celebrity spokesperson for Charleston Animal Society, do you have any suggestions on who you would like that to be?
Well, I'll tell you, it's we've had different celebrities come through town and do things for us.
And we love them all.
There's so many. I remember Dan and Shay, the country group. They did a special thing, invite us to backstage with them to do a little promo about animal adoptions and stuff, and animal cruelty and those types of things. And then Bernadette Peters, her entire life has been supportive of animals, very much like Betty White. And Bernadette Peters performed at the Gilliard Center a few years ago. And she was very close friends with Mary Tyler Moore, as a lot of folks remember. Well, she was performing at Gilliard on a Friday night, and what she would do when she would go to a venue, she would ask a local animal organization to come in on that next morning, and she would do a photo shoot with them.
Oh, wow.
But because she was so close to Mary Tyler Moore, and Mary Tyler Moore died that week, they were going to have the service that Saturday. So Bernadette Peters was going to have to get up really, really early on Saturday morning to make it to the service, as I remember. So instead of just canceling that, after her performance at Gilliard, she wanted to do the photo shoot then, late Friday night and everything. She was so classy and so giving that was so important for her to do. For the Animal Society, and we were just, mesmerized with her, the performance, everything about her. She didn't rush anything, and she was just as genuine and classy and giving as you could possibly imagine, particularly with a celebrity and everything. So that's kind of my favorite, celebrity spokesperson.
Well, how about
animals.
Taylor Swift on the cover of Time with her cat?
I mean, well, there you go.
You want to talk about animal advocates. The number one person in the world has her cat on the cover of Time magazine.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the Swifties. Yeah, just come on down, Swifties. You can get your cat with us at the Animal Society, and we'll take care of you. Yeah, especially in the spring and summer.
Michael, you're up.
So if you could give one superpower to all the animals in your shelter, what would that one superpower be?
I think I would give them the ability to adopt humans. Put it in their hands.
Yeah.
Wow, so they get to pick us?
Yeah,
Don't some of them already do that?
Yeah, they do.
They
do. And, I'd give them that ability.
Nice.
You go out and you pick who you want to be your human.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I absolutely. And then I'm going to ask you one more. So if animals could talk, Joe, what do you think they'd be saying about us?
What is it? The proverbial see no, the monkeys, the chimpanzees, the see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. The three of us. No, I don't know.
I hope the majority love us, right?
I think they would. It's and y'all know this, and the listeners know this, that you can, the dogs or the animals, the cats, whatever, get real excited when someone comes into the house, that type of thing. Everybody gets really excited and everything. But then when you sit down, you're stationary, and you start carrying on that conversation, that brings such an ease to them. And typically you don't realize it until a few minutes into that conversation. Right. They're all lying around, almost asleep, or some of them are sleeping, but they're relaxed. They're so chill and everything. It's just casual conversation, the interplay between people, none of this social media stuff, and the calm that it brings to those animals. And we learn so much because animal behavior is so similar to human behavior and just countless ways. And you can see that. Conversation relaxes people. It brings a calm to living creatures. And well,
I could see me hanging out on my couch talking to my dog.
Yeah.
Just having a whole conversation. What'd you do today?
Yeah.
Well, I actually do it, but they don't respond to me. Like the first thing I say when I go home is when I go to feed my cat, I'm like, "Hi, baby. How was your day today? What did you do? Did you chase squirrels?" I do that whole thing. And I sometimes say to myself, does she think I'm nuts, or is she responding to me in her head?
Yeah. It's, there's beauty to animals' behavior and everything. But at the end of the day, this is all about public health and safety, and it's a public health and safety issue. Most animal shelters are government facilities. I mean, Columbia, Greenville, Horry County, Myrtle Beach area, Charlotte, Atlanta, Savannah, all government facilities. It's a unique relationship here in Charleston County. We are the vendor for shelter for the disposition of animals, and so the local government, outsources that to us. And it's, but it is all about public health and safety, and I think that where we're missing the boat in our community is that we've got to look at public health and safety like we look at all public health and safety. You invest in prevention and response, and for us, it's this is not a complicated issue like education, crime, domestic violence, hunger. Those are complicated issues. Affordable housing, complicated issues. Ours is, the overpopulation of animals is, it's clear, it's black and white, spaying and neutering. And at some point when you get, all of the low-hanging fruit, like you do with any kind of advocacy, whether it's texting and driving, drinking and driving, litter, the highways, all that, that all started out as advocacy campaigns. But then at some point you had to marry it with public policy, so that you had to put in some punitive measures for reckless behavior, such as texting and driving, drinking and driving, littering the highways, and those things. And we're really behind the eight ball on that. We need to move forward with that and get some incentivized, registration processes in place, and some mandatory spay neuter for the animals that are most overpopulated, because it'll enhance public health and safety, but it'll also reduce the number of animals that eventually die because there's just too many of that particular animal.
Well, I certainly cannot thank you enough on behalf of Michael and myself,
Absolutely,
and everyone at the Chamber for your continued not only support of the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce, because you are a member, and one of our favorite things about the expo is when you come with the puppies. One of the favorite. We do love everybody at the expo, but just all the work that you do for these animals in our region, in our state, all of the initiatives that you've created, Joe, and all of the work that you've done, and the staff that you've put together, and the volunteers. Again, I myself at Town Center is a huge supporter, huge fan. We do so many events with you because we believe in you, believe in what you've done, and what you continue to do, and then it's something that you should all be extremely, extremely proud of. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy and Michael. I enjoy being here. It's as we always say at Charleston, we always say you are Charleston Animal Society. It really isn't any one person or group of people or that type of thing. It's the entire community. It's the community owns this institution for 150 years, and it's
Say it again?
100 as a sesquicentennial.
Okay, thank you.
The sesquicentennial, and everything. It's do I get a free shopping spree?
You do something.
A free
You
shopping
keep saying
spree.
that, yes.
If I get a free shopping spree at Town Center, and then just add something, the icing on the cake, if I can spell it, and everything. That would be great. But no, thank you all, because it's your support, including us in things like this. The Chamber, Town Center, it really is everyone. I am so fortunate, privileged to just be up in the air traffic control tower, but the folks that are flying the planes, and the passengers on the planes, and the ground crews and all that kind of stuff, they're the ones that make it happen. I just get to play air traffic control.
That's awesome. No, you're doing a really good job, though.
What's the best thing we can do to help you?
There's, as I mentioned, whether it's a, gift of your time as a volunteer, a gift of your home as an adopter, a gift of your income as a donor, all three of those are equally important and crucial to the success of saving animals. But you can go to charlestonanimalsociety.org, and just kind of look around and everything. The animal shelter itself is open 7 days a week. Come up, bring the family up, just look around. You don't have to leave with an animal. We'd love for you to leave with an animal, but
Sure.
but you don't have to leave. Come up and see it and everything. But as we've entered spring, it's the critical need right now is for fosters. Foster homes, and to come up and learn it. And you can do this on your time. If it's too much for you, you don't have to do it. No one's going to guilt you or anything like that. But just reach out to us, charlestonanimalsociety.org. And right now is the time where the kittens are coming in, and they're just flooding in, falling from the sky. And this is the time that we need you. So please consider that, and it won't cost you a thing.
So instead of spurs up or fins up, I'm going to say paws up for the Charleston Animal Society. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you, Michael.
We also want to thank our sponsors again, Charleston Radio Group. Thank you for letting us be here today with you. If you want to be a sponsor or be a guest on our podcast, please reach out to us and we will get back to you on that. Be sure to like and subscribe to all of our media channels. We'll be in Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So thank you all so very much for being with us today. And before I sign off, I'm going to do a Bob Barker, spay and neuter your animals. Until next time, Mount Pleasant. Until next time, listeners.